My story isn't about a ghost or some monster from a campfire tale. I wish it were. Monsters have rules, you can understand them. The thing that happened to me, it was about a person, and that's what makes it so much harder to forget. This was a few years ago. I had just graduated college and, like a lot of people my age, the grand adventure of making it on my own immediately crashed into the reality of rent prices. So I moved back in with my parents. They'd recently bought a house in a quiet, sleepy-looking suburb, the kind of place with perfectly manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, and a welcoming air of absolute normalcy. It was supposed to be a temporary pit stop while I saved up money. Our house was at the end of a cul-de-sac, backed up against a small patch of woods. Our only direct neighbor to the side was a man named Mr. Abernathy. From what my parents had gathered, he was a widower who had lived in that house for over 30 years. His lawn was immaculate, his hedges were trimmed with geometric precision, and we never saw any visitors. He seemed quiet, harmless. The first odd thing I noticed was in his backyard. Tucked away near the tree line, almost hidden by a large willow tree, were 3 mannequins. They were old, the kind with chipped paint and eerily realistic glass eyes. One was a woman in a faded floral dress, another was a young boy in shorts, and the third was a little girl in a white smock. They were just standing there, posed as if they were having a silent, eternal picnic. Weird for sure, but I figured he was just an eccentric old artist or something. I brushed it off. The first week, everything was fine. I'd wave if I saw him getting his mail. He'd offer a quick, tight-lipped smile and a nod before retreating back inside. But then I started noticing him in the windows. I'd be in our kitchen, which had a large window overlooking our side yard and his house, and I'd catch a flicker of movement. It was Mr. Abernathy standing in his living room, perfectly still, just watching. The moment I'd make eye contact, he wouldn't look away. He'd just hold his gaze with that same vacant, non-committal smile until I got uncomfortable and closed the blinds. This went on for a couple of weeks. It was unsettling, but I told myself I was overreacting. He's a lonely old man, I'd think. He's just curious about the new neighbors. Then the gifts started. One morning I went out to get the newspaper and found a single porcelain doll's hand sitting on our doormat. It was small, perfectly sculpted, but cold and unnerving. There was no note. I showed my parents and my dad just laughed it off. "Probably fell out of a kid's toy bag," he said, and tossed it in the trash. But I knew where it came from. It was the same style as the mannequins. A week later, it was a single glass eye. It was sitting right on the railing of our front porch, staring up at the sky. This time, I didn't tell my parents. A cold dread was starting to pool in my stomach. He wasn't just eccentric. He was crossing a line. He was coming onto our property at night, leaving these pieces. The final straw before things went truly bad was a direct conversation. I was pulling weeds in our front garden one Saturday. Mr. Abernathy was trimming his hedges. He finally spoke to me, his voice a dry, papery rustle. "You have your mother's hands," he said, not looking up from his work. I was taken aback. Thank you, Mr. Abernathy." He stopped trimming and turned to me, his eyes magnified by his thick glasses. "She was beautiful too, your mother, when she was your age." He paused and his smile widened just a fraction. "The mannequin, the one in the dress, she's modeled after her. My Eleanor." My blood ran cold. "My mother's name is Sarah." I have to go inside," I stammered, backing away. I didn't wait for a reply. I ran into the house and locked the door, my heart pounding against my ribs. He wasn't just watching, he was fantasizing, and he was confusing me with someone else. Or worse, he was casting me in some kind of twisted play he was acting out in his backyard. That night, my parents went out for their anniversary dinner. I was home alone, binging a show on Netflix, trying to forget the day's encounter. A thunderstorm was rolling in, the sky flashing with distant lightning. Around 10 p.m., the power flickered and then died, plunging the house into darkness. I wasn't too scared at first. I lit a few candles and settled back onto the couch. Then I heard it, a faint scraping sound from the backyard. My first thought was a branch hitting the house in the wind, but the sound was rhythmic, deliberate. Scrape, drag, scrape, drag. My heart hammered in my chest. I crept to the sliding glass door that led to our back patio, my phone clutched in a sweaty hand. The backyard was pitch black, except for when the lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark, terrifying snapshots. In the first flash of lightning, I saw that the mannequins weren't by the woods anymore. They were gone. My breath caught in my throat. Where were they? Another flash of lightning, brighter this time, and I saw them. They were on my patio, all three of them, and Mr. Abernathy was with them. He was carefully arranging them around our small patio table, turning the little boy mannequin's head to face the little girl. He was setting up a scene. And then he looked up, directly at the glass door, directly at me. In the next flash of lightning, I saw his face. He had that wide, horrifying smile. He raised a hand and gave me a slow, deliberate wave. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I was paralyzed. I backed away from the door, fumbling with my phone to dial 911. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the numbers. As the dispatcher answered, I heard a new sound. The soft jiggle of the handle on the sliding glass door. 911? What's your emergency? The voice on the phone said. I could only whisper. My neighbor. He's in my backyard. He's trying to get in. Then came a gentle, rhythmic tap, tap, tap on the glass. He was knocking, politely, as if he were invited. I ran and hid in the pantry, leaving the phone line open, tears streaming down my face as I listened to the dispatcher trying to get more information. The tapping stopped. For a terrifying minute, there was only silence, broken by the rumbling thunder. I thought maybe he'd given up. Then a loud crash of glass came from the living room window. I choked back a sob. He was coming in. I braced myself, huddling in the back of the pantry, grabbing a heavy can of soup. But just as I heard the crunch of his footsteps on the broken glass inside the house, the night was split open by the sound of sirens and the flashing of red and blue lights washing over the walls. He must have seen them because I heard him scramble back out the broken window. The police found me in the pantry. They cleared the house and then they went next door. Mr. Abernathy was sitting in his living room, watching TV as if nothing had happened. They couldn't arrest him right away, but the evidence was overwhelming. The broken window, my 911 call. What they found inside his house was the stuff of nightmares. His entire basement was a workshop filled with mannequin parts, wigs, and clothes. Upstairs, in a locked room, they found dozens of photographs. Photos of me, working in the garden, getting the mail, sitting in the kitchen, all taken from his window. He was eventually committed to a psychiatric facility. My parents sold the house within 6 months. I moved to an apartment in the city, on the 3rd floor. But the fear never really leaves you. It's been years and I still can't sit with my back to a window. I check the locks on my door 3 times before I go to bed. And sometimes when I'm looking out at the city lights, I catch my own reflection in the dark glass. And for a split second I think I see him standing behind me, smiling.